The studio settles into that familiar rhythm just before a conversation deepens, when the audience applause fades and the air feels expectant rather than loud. Clint Eastwood sits quietly at the guest table, hands folded, posture relaxed but deliberate, like someone who has never needed to fill space with unnecessary motion. The years sit on him lightly, there's no performative charm, no nervous shifting. Joy Behar watches him with the practiced eye of someone who has interviewed thousands of guests and knows when one of them isn't going to follow the usual script. "So, Clint," Joy says, smiling as she turns her body slightly toward him, "you've been part of this industry longer than most of us have been alive. You've watched Hollywood reinvent itself over and over. What feels different now?" Eastwood doesn't answer immediately. He glances out toward the audience, not scanning for approval, just observing. Then his gaze returns to Joy, steady and unhurried. "People talk more," he says finally. "They explain themselves more, but they listen less." A ripple of polite laughter passes through the audience, the kind that acknowledges a comment without fully committing to it. Joy lifts an eyebrow, her smile tightening just a bit. She's heard answers like this before, but something about his delivery, flat, almost weary, makes it land differently. "That sounds less like a neutral observation and more like a critique," she says. "You sure you're not scolding us?" Eastwood's mouth curves into the faintest smile. "I'm not scolding anyone, I'm just noticing." Joy taps her pen against the table. "Okay, then let's unpack that. Who isn't listening? The audience, the studios, the people talking, everybody," Clint replies calmly. "When everyone's busy reacting, nobody's paying attention." The room quiets. One of the co-hosts glances at Joy, sensing the shift from light banter into something heavier. Joy leans back in her chair, studying him. "So is this about social media?" she asks. "Because that's usually where this conversation goes." "It's part of it," Clint says. "But it's bigger than that. It's about turning every moment into a statement. Every silence into a problem that needs explaining." Joy nods slowly. "You're saying people should talk less." "I'm saying," Clint responds, "they should do more." A few audience members clap instinctively. Joy smiles, but there's an edge to it now, curiosity sharpening into challenge. "Do more how?" "Make more movies. Say less about them. Make something that stands on its own," Clint says. "If it's strong, it doesn't need constant defense." Joy tilts her head. "That's easy to say when you're Clint Eastwood." A murmur runs through the crowd. Eastwood doesn't bristle. He doesn't rush to counter the point. "It wasn't always easy," he says evenly. "I made plenty of things people didn't like. Some failed quietly, some loudly, but they were still mine. I didn't explain them away afterward." Joy leans forward now, elbows on the table. "But the world's different. People expect explanations. They demand them." "That's exactly the problem," Clint replies. "Expectation replaces curiosity." Joy laughs softly. "You really don't like Captions, do you?" Clint looks at her, puzzled for a beat. "Captions, the way moments get reduced," Joy explains. "A quote, a freeze frame, a sentence slapped on top of a face and passed around like it's the whole story." Clint nods. "That's what I mean. Reality doesn't fit in a caption." The audience reacts immediately, some applause, some audible murmurs of agreement. A camera cuts briefly to Joy's co-hosts, who exchange quick glances. Joy pauses, registering the weight of the line. "That's a strong statement," she says. "Especially coming from someone who's been quoted for decades." "I've been misquoted for decades too," Clint replies. Joy smiles. "Fair." She glances toward the camera, aware of how this is already playing for viewers at home. "So let me push back a little. Captions exist because people don't have time. They scroll, they skim. Isn't that just the reality now?" "It's a habit," Clint says. "Not a law of nature." Joy nods, but she doesn't let him off that easily. "But habits shape culture. And culture shapes work. You can't pretend it doesn't." "I don't pretend it doesn't," Clint says. "I just don't let it tell me how to work." The audience claps again, louder this time. Joy watches him carefully, her expression thoughtful but alert. "So when you see younger actors, younger filmmakers, talking about their work, defending it online, explaining themselves, what do you think?" Clint shrugs slightly. "I think they're nervous." Joy laughs. "That's generous. They have a lot of eyes on them," Clint continues. "A lot of noise. It makes people feel like they have to justify every choice before anyone even sees the result." Joy taps her pen again, faster now. "But sometimes people want to know where you stand. Then watch the work," Clint says. "It tells you more than a quote ever will." Joy's smile fades into something more serious. You know that's not how people consume things anymore. Clint meets her gaze. That doesn't make it better. A hush falls over the audience. Even Joy seems to pause, caught between agreement and resistance. So what happens, she asks slowly, when people misunderstand you because they only saw the caption? Clint's expression doesn't change. That's not new. Joy studies him. You really don't care. I care about the work, he says. The rest passes. Joy exhales, half laughing, half sighing. You're making a lot of people uncomfortable right now. That's okay, Clint replies. Comfort's overrated. The audience reacts again, louder, divided but engaged. Joy looks briefly toward the camera, then back to Clint. You realize, she says, that everything you're saying right now is going to be clipped, captioned, and shared within minutes. Clint smiles faintly. That's out of my control. Joy smirks. You say that, but you just handed them a line on a silver platter. Then they can use it, Clint says. It won't change what I meant. Joy shakes her head, amused and challenged at the same time. You know, for someone who doesn't believe in captions, you just created a perfect one. Clint looks at her, calm as ever. Reality doesn't read captions. The audience gasps and laughs all at once. Joy freezes for half a second, the words landing harder the second time. Her expression flickers, surprise, recognition, calculation, all in a blink. The moment Clint's words settle into the room, the atmosphere subtly but unmistakably changes. Joy Behar holds her smile a beat too long, the way seasoned performers do when they know a line has landed harder than expected. The audience reaction swells, laughter mixed with gasps, applause layered over murmurs, and Joy can almost feel the clip being born in real time, trimmed and frozen somewhere in a control room, already destined to live a life far bigger than this conversation. Reality doesn't read captions, Joy repeats slowly, tasting the words as if she's deciding whether to admire them or challenge them. You've been saving that one, haven't you? Clint Eastwood shrugs, unbothered. I've been thinking it for a while. Joy turns slightly toward the camera, one eyebrow arched. Well, congratulations, you just gave the internet its lunch. The audience laughs, relieved by the humor, but there's an edge beneath it. Joy knows what happens next. She's watched it happen 1,000 times. A freeze frame of her face. Mid-expression, something between amused and skeptical, paired with Clint's quote in bold white text. Context optional, nuance not required. You don't seem worried, Joy says, looking back at Clint. Most people would be bracing for impact right now. I've had worse headlines, Clint replies calmly. They come and go. Joy nods. True, but captions stick. They become truth for people who never watched the conversation. That's on them, Clint says. Not me. Joy leans back, crossing her arms. See, that's where I push back. Because whether we like it or not, those captions shape how people see us. They don't just reflect reality anymore, they edit it. The audience hums in agreement. One of the co-hosts glances toward Joy, clearly intrigued, but lets her continue. So when someone takes that line, Joy says, gesturing vaguely in the air, and slaps it under my face with a sarcastic emoji, suddenly I'm part of a story I didn't write. Clint looks at her, thoughtful. You've been part of stories you didn't write your whole career. Joy smiles wryly. Touché. But the speed is different now. It used to take time for something to be misunderstood. That doesn't make misunderstanding new, Clint says. Joy laughs softly. You really are unshakable. I'm old, Clint replies. It helps. The audience laughs again, warmer now. Joy glances briefly off camera, catching sight of a producer holding up a tablet. Even from where she sits, Joy can see her own face on the screen, frozen in a half-smile beneath Clint's quote. It's already happening. Well, Joy says, squinting, they didn't even wait for the commercial break. She turns the tablet toward Clint. Look familiar. Clint leans in slightly, studying the image. That's fast. Welcome to the modern age, Joy says. You say something smart, and 5 seconds later it belongs to everyone else. Clint nods. Doesn't bother me. Joy studies him. It bothers a lot of people. That's because they're still trying to control it, he replies. You can't. Joy exhales. You know, for someone who claims not to care about captions, you're remarkably good at generating them. A faint smile appears on Clint's face. That wasn't the goal, but it's the result, Joy says. And results matter. She turns back to the camera, her host instincts fully engaged now. For anyone watching this later, maybe in a clip, maybe with a caption, here's the part you didn't see. She gestures between herself and Clint. Two people actually talking, disagreeing, listening. The audience applauds, a little louder, a little prouder. Joy looks back at Clint. Do you ever worry that people don't want the full conversation anymore? Clint considers the question. Some don't, some do. I make things for the ones who do. Joy nods slowly. That's an answer a filmmaker would give. That's the only thing I know how to be, Clint replies. The energy in the room softens. The earlier edge gives way to something more reflective. Joy uncrosses her arms. You know, she says, I tease about captions, but there's something freeing about what you're saying. Let the work speak. Let people argue with it if they want. That's all you can do, Clint says. Arguing with the noise just makes more noise. Joy smiles. You're not wrong. I just wish the noise didn't have such good graphic designers. The audience bursts into laughter. Even Clint chuckles, a low, quiet sound.